Hello there. This video is going to be kind of an unofficial video. I'm not going to put a lot of effort into this one because it's basically just going to be me having a chat with you about staging walls. I've put up a new staging wall. A lot of you will remember that I did have a staging wall up already. It was on that side of the shed. And there's a video for how I put it together. I'll put the link for it in the description. I put a new staging wall up. I haven't recorded the whole process because it's been a bit of a tough process for me because it put a lot of extra stress on me that I really didn't need, and I just wanted to get it done and I didn't know if it was going to work out. And anyway, could talk about that for days. But I basically just wanted to have a chat with you and talk to you about the things that I think I did wrong with the other staging wall and how I amended that issue this time around, so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to start off by showing you the staging wall and then we'll go from there. You ready? Hang on. Zoom out a bit. No? Not zooming out. Okay. Alright. Ta-da! Alright. Give me a second and I'll stage something. Okay, you ready for this? It's magnificent. I spent ages working on this staging. What do you think? Looks good, eh? Alright, so it looks a bit dodgy like that, but let me take some photos and I'll show you. Trust me. Alright, so that was just some basic staging, obviously, with a ladder and a dead plant, because I can't keep my plants alive. And all I did with those photos was use Snapshot to crop the photo, and I brightened it a little bit, added some contrast, and added a vignette. So just slightly darker around the edges and corners, and a little bit brighter right where I wanted the focus point to be. When it comes to the other staging wall that I put up, the first way I up was by putting it on that side of the shed. Yeah, it might be better if I turn around like this. So I put the original staging wall on that side of the shed. The first lot of rain we had that was really bad and we ended up with flooding. The water came in along that bottom wall, or the wall that's closest to our neighbours. And it came through a lot and it damaged everything and made the wall and everything go moldy, and it was just a mess. The reason I still did it on that wall instead of moving it over to the other, building it on the other side, was because the previous owners that my mum brought her house from didn't say anything at all about the shed flooding with heavy rain, and we just assumed that this one time flooding through the shed was just a fluke thing that probably wouldn't happen again. So to amend that, instead of building it on that side again, I built it on that side and went through all of the pain of taking everything that I had fitted on that side of the shed and moved it over to that side. So the next thing I did wrong was using MDF. I had a feeling when I went and purchased all of the MDF for it, that it was going to be a bad idea, but I thought, no, it'll be fine. What could go wrong? I shouldn't have done that. I was going for the cheapest option possible. It wasn't actually that cheap. Just to get the stuff that I needed to put that wall together, it cost a bit over $150. And whilst we're at it, I'll point out a huge difference in price so far. So the sheets of corrugated iron that I got for this wall, I got from Sebastian. That he had in his backyard, and I paid him $20 for them. So because I used MDF on the walls, there was a lot of warping, and even before there was like moisture or the flooding or anything like that, there was a lot of warping in the wall because it didn't like being vertical without being attached in plenty of places. So parts of it were just attached with liquid nails to the shed frame, and other parts where I could were attached to pine things. Yeah. So part of the wall was made using VJ panel. So this stuff here is VJ panel. This is actually the part that was over there in that corner. So that part was only small section, and that was just there so that when I do angle shots, so from this angle, it was just there so that you wouldn't see the shed wall, which is basically the same as what I've done here with putting this part over here. So when I take angle shots, you can't see that side of the wall and all that. So the reason I'm able to reuse that part from over the other side is because that stuff was fine. Like, it got damp, it got wet, but it was fine because that stuff was actually, it's actually VJ panel that's made for wet areas, so like bathrooms, kitchens, laundries, whatever. So that stuff's fine. As you can see in this corner here, I did try to cut the VJ panel so that it would fit in with the corrugated iron, but it hasn't gone all that well. But I'm going for a rough finish, so I'm not overly concerned about that. It's just there so that you can't see the shed wall. So the other place I went wrong was, like I already mentioned, I used pine. I used pine timber to frame in the wall a bit more, so they had more places to attach the MDF for the wall. It wasn't just the MDF that was rotten and moldy, it was the pine as well. So all of that pine studs, all the pine studs that I had to throw all of that out. So that was all useless. The vinyl that I had down on the floor, pulled all of that up, cleaned it off as best as I could. That was also moldy underneath. So the concrete floor in here isn't sealed. It's just, yeah, unsealed concrete. It's rough. It gets really dusty. Concrete dust is constantly coming up. But yeah, the moisture kind of goes from the ground and seeps up through the concrete and up into the vinyl. I'm hoping it was only a problem over in that corner and then it'll be fine over here, because as you can see, I've got the floor down again. So when it was over that side, I did have it stuck down with painter's tape, but this time I've used duct tape, and I dusted it off really well as best as I could before as I was going around sticking it down. The duct tape didn't like sticking to the rough surface because it wasn't able to adhere to much of the surface at all. So what I did, after I went down and stuck it all down and made sure the floor was all nice and flat, I went through with my heat gun. I basically just heated up the tape in sections, so heated it up and basically softened the tape really well, and then just stomped it down, and it's stuck down really well now, so I'm not worried about that. Look, see? Most of that you can see there is concrete dust. Alright, so one of the main points I wanted to talk about with this video is my choice of going with corrugated iron. I think the most obvious point for this is going to be the fact that it's not going to go moldy. Moisture in the air isn't going to be an issue for it. It was also super cheap for me to get, as opposed to putting up a solid wall of like VJ panel, because I was considering getting a whole heap, but that would have cost me a couple $100. And I didn't want to go wasting that kind of money again, so corrugated iron was going to be my best bet. Now, I was just going to go for something super rusty with holes in it and all of that, and I was just like, yep, that's fine. I'm going to go for a rusty finish this time and go super rustic. The corrugated iron that I got off Sebastian was actually in perfect condition, and it was like a dark grey blue colour. But I was adamant about going for a rusty finish, because I'm kind of going a little bit Australiana this time, because I am Australian. So, you know, I want to be Australian, and I want to step away from trying to be a perfectionist and let go of some of that control and not be so pedantic about things. I tried really hard to be perfect with the other wall, and I've gone complete opposite direction this time and gone super rustic. And it's not going to matter if it gets a little bit of damage or gets knocked or anything like that. There's holes in it from where I've put screws in, so there might end up being real rust at some point. And I am going to, so I did this, I've painted all of this with just enamel from Bunnings. It's just, I think it was British paints. Whew, I need to catch my breath. Too many iced coffees and croissants from True Grit. So yeah, it was a pain in the ass to paint, absolute pain in the ass. And it's not, I haven't got full coverage on this, but like I've said, I'm not going perfect with it. I want it to be rustic and rough. And I had to cut one of the pieces to fit here, and it had to go up a bit higher than this one so that I could attach it at the top. Otherwise it was just going to be free floating. But it works for me because then it's got that kind of patchy, rough finish to it. So all the rustiness that I've done on this, I did using Carts and Millie washed away shed door. So I'm happy with this as it is. I literally just would brush it along here and then grab my spray bottle and spray it, and that was it. So I am going to go in again with a different colour at some point, maybe something with a bit more of a red in it, like the, quintessential red Australian dirt that you see in a lot of things. We don't have it here where we are in Ipswich, but anyway, I want a bit more red in it, just to liven it up a bit. So I'll do that at some point. I might just keep adding to it a bit at a time. So another thing that I'm going to do is I do occasionally like to hang things on the wall when I'm staging pieces, but I don't want to drill into this and have a whole heap of random nails or screws or hooks hanging out of the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm either going to get some magnets and stick some nice strong magnets to the back of the pieces that I would like to hang up, or I'm going to get some hooks and hook them over the end so that I can just hook things up from catgut or string or rope or something like that, whichever. But you get the gist, and that way I can just move it along to wherever I want and yeah, hang things up. The more I think about it, the more I think this gap is going to bother me a bit, so I might get some chunky rope or something and just run that through there just to fill that gap a bit, because it is a bit dark. And yeah, anyway, I think that just about covers everything. There are other things, like if there's anything I haven't covered in this, I'm pretty sure I covered it in the other video, which I said will be in the description. So I'll put the link in the description. And yeah, I think that's it. So if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments and I will answer them. I might not get to them straight away, but I will. Anything that I've used in this video will be in the description. A lot of people ask about the floor. That was purchased for me by the lovely Angela, and I will see if I can find the link for it from Bunnings for the actual one that I went for and put it in the description, because a lot of people do ask about that. Yeah. Speaking of Angela, Angela was very naughty and purchased something for me from my Amazon wish list. She got me this wallpaper. See if you can see the picture. Alright, you can see the leaves. Super, super pretty. Very nice, very nice. I'll put the link for that in the description. It seems to be a very popular one these days. Thank you, Angela, for the wallpaper. I can't wait to use it. My Amazon wishlist will be in the description with everything else. And yeah, So I hope this, the main reason I did this was to clear some things up from the last staging wall and the issues I had for it, but also it's here for anyone else who is thinking about putting up a staging wall of their own. Corrugated iron is definitely an option. I mean, look at it. Doesn't it look fabulous? Yeah, anyway, it's been a long day, so I'm going to get going and I'll see you next time. So, got home and had another package waiting for me. Is another item off my Amazon wish list. And it's these absolutely gorgeous furniture feet. Like, look at that. Aren't they beautiful? Like, the photos don't do them justice, and they're so smooth. I'm going to have to find something special to use these on.